useless, an embarrassment to the family. That's what my sister said to me, word for word. No hesitation, no shame. She was standing in our mother's living room in her designer robe, surrounded by champagne flutes and smiling bridesmaids. And she looked me dead in the eye, oh, like I wasn't even human. Like the years I spent bailing her out of debt, helping her get that PR internship, driving her home after drunken parties. None of it had ever happened. My name is Madison, and from wherever you're watching this, stay with me. Because being erased from your own family story, it's a special kind of death. Have you ever watched people plan joy around your exclusion and smile while doing it? Let me take you back to the exact moment. I had just arrived with a small gift, nothing extravagant, just a framed photo of the two of us from childhood. Her favorite, or so I thought. She barely glanced at it. Oh, that's sentimental, she said, placing it face down on the counter. But yeah, I've been meaning to talk to you. She waved the bridesmaids away. So, we've finalized the guest list. We're keeping it tight. Just real family. And we don't want any awkward energy, you know? I blinked. I'm your sister. Exactly. Which is why this is hard. But Mom agrees. The day needs to be about elevating the family name. You understand. Elevating the name? I paid off Mom's mortgage. I covered Dad's hospital bill. I loaned Tasha money for this wedding. And suddenly, I wasn't family? I left without saying a word. No tears. No begging. I got home, poured a glass of wine, and opened my laptop. I canceled the floral vendor. Why? Because the florist was under my name and my credit card. I also paused the $2,800 transfer for their photographer, the one I'd agreed to sponsor. Then, I opened a new browser tab, booked a direct flight to Bora Bora, and clicked confirm. Not for revenge. Not yet. Just for silence. 3 days later, I was lying under palm trees, letting the ocean breeze dry my hair, when I started getting the calls. First from Mom, then from Tasha, then from my cousin Katie, the same cousin who told me I was too low profile for the wedding party. 20 missed calls. 16 texts. I ignored all of them, until finally, I played one voicemail for my sister. Her voice cracked. Madison, I know you're upset, but there's been an issue with the venue and the photographer. And, there's rumors online about the wedding being canceled. I don't know who started them, but we really need to talk. I sipped my drink and looked at the sea. They weren't rumors. I hadn't said a word to anyone, but someone else had. The universe? Karma? Or maybe just a final invoice I let go unpaid. And in the middle of that tropical paradise, my phone buzzed again. An email from the venue manager. Subject: refund denied. Attached were screenshots of my cancellation and notes about payment disputes and last-minute changes made by the sponsor. A line at the bottom made me smile. We do not work with clients who disrespect our contracted partners. Best of luck with your event. I didn't answer the calls. Not yet. Because I wasn't finished watching their picture-perfect story fall apart. One dropped call at a time. By day 4 of my vacation, the family group chat was exploding. Messages flooded in like a hurricane. Why did the photographer pull out? Tasha's crying, this isn't funny. The wedding is in 3 days. Answer your phone. Mom said you're in Bora Bora. Seriously? And my favorite from Dad. You need to grow up and fix this. Now. Fix what, exactly? The wedding that I wasn't family enough to attend? The one they planned behind my back, but funded with my hard-earned money? Please. I didn't reply. I went snorkeling instead. I floated above coral reefs while they panicked back home, racing to find a new venue, a new florist, and new photographer. But good luck finding one on 3 days' notice during wedding season, when your original vendor warns others that you're entitled, unethical, and unstable. That last part? Their own doing. Apparently, my sister screamed at the venue manager when they wouldn't reinstate the booking. Told her she'd ruined the most important day of her life. Didn't know that venue manager had a cousin who works in event PR, or that the meltdown was recorded. It was now circulating quietly among planners with the subject line: avoid this bridezilla at all costs. Meanwhile, back in paradise. I was at peace. I wrote in my journal, "You don't have to destroy people who tried to bury you. Just stop watering the roots of their entitlement." Then I set down my pen, smiled at the sunset, and turned off my phone for 24 hours. When I turned it back on, I had 47 missed calls and a message from my ex-best friend, Bree, the one who ghosted me last year to be a bridesmaid. "Hey Mads, weird question, but did you actually cancel everything? Everyone's freaking out. Your mom said you're being dramatic, but the florist said you filed a fraud dispute on your card? Is that true? Call me." I didn't. Instead, I uploaded a photo to my private story. Me in a hammock. Caption: "Heard there's a wedding this weekend. Hope it's a good one." Winking emoji. I knew someone would screenshot it. I was counting on it. Then came the official moment. The wedding website changed from "Join us in celebrating the love of Tasha and Jordan" to "Due to unforeseen circumstances, the wedding will be postponed. We appreciate your support." Unforeseen. Funny. What was actually unforeseen? That the person you belittled might just be the one holding your entire fantasy together. They finally got me on the phone that night. Mom was screaming, "You ruined her big day." I said nothing. What kind of sister does this? What kind of daughter leaves the country like a coward? Still nothing. Then she said something that made me smile. "Madison, come on. We're family." Ah, that word again. The same word they weaponized to cut me out, now begging to be used as a shield. I took a deep breath, leaned back in the lounge chair, and simply said, "You all made it clear. Weddings are for family." So I stayed away. Then I hung up, and for the first time in years, I felt no guilt. No guilt. No shame. No urge to fix what they broke. Just the slow, rising tide of something stronger than revenge. Freedom. By the time the original wedding date arrived, the replacement venue they scrambled for was a far cry from the hilltop vineyard they'd planned. The original location, the one I paid the deposit on, had views of the ocean, chandeliers strung through trees, and a full-string quartet scheduled. This one? A repurposed event hall near the freeway. Plastic chairs. No AC. And a suspicious smell no one could quite identify. But the most poetic part? Someone sent me a photo of the original cake. You know, the 5-tier vanilla bean one they said was too expensive when I offered to cover it, and then went ahead and ordered anyway with my card? They'd forgotten to cancel delivery. The cake had arrived at the original venue, the locked and empty venue. It sat outside for hours, in the sun. Eventually, someone tossed the entire thing into the back dumpster. The baker posted a blurry image to her Instagram story. Unclaimed beauty. Always confirm with your vendor grimacing face. It went viral. Not because of the cake, but because someone zoomed in on the name written in fondant across the second tier. "Congratulations, Tasha and Jordan." People connected the dots. And suddenly, their canceled wedding became online gossip. That same night, I got a text from Jordan's cousin, a girl I'd never met in person, but who followed me online. "You don't know me, but I just want to say you're a legend. The way you handled that wedding, chef's kiss. Tasha treated everyone like garbage, and it finally caught up. Hope you're sipping something cold." I was. A chilled coconut mojito. Feet in warm sand. The sound of waves replacing every fake compliment I'd ever heard from my family. But it didn't end there. Apparently, during the ceremony, or what was left of it, the microphone system cut out. No vows. No music. Just a barely decorated room, some folding chairs, and the uncomfortable sound of guests whispering things like, "Weren't they supposed to have a violinist? This isn't what the invitation showed. Where's her sister?" I found out later that Jordan's parents weren't impressed. His mother asked quietly, "Didn't her sister sponsor most of this?" To which Tasha replied, "No." She offered, but she got weird and backed out last minute. Drama queen. Wrong move. Because guess what? Jordan's mom and I had spoken before. She knew who paid what. She thanked me for covering their engagement dinner. I didn't have to say a word. Tasha's lies crumbled without me lifting a single finger. When I got home 2 weeks later, I walked into my quiet apartment, watered my plants, and lit a candle. There was no "We missed you" banner. No flowers. Just silence. And I loved it. But what I did find waiting was a card slid under my door. No envelope. Just my name on the front. Inside. You didn't have to go nuclear. You could have just said you were hurt. Mom. I read it twice. Then ripped it in half. Because that's the thing. I did say I was hurt. When they laughed at me. When they called me an embarrassment. When they planned a wedding I wasn't welcome at, but funded in silence. I had said everything. They just weren't listening. So now? They could listen to the sound of their own regrets echoing back. A week after I returned from Bora Bora, the real fallout began. Not from me. From a single photo. Someone, maybe a guest, maybe a caterer, snapped a picture during the wedding reception. It was blurry, chaotic, and completely unfiltered. The bride was mid-tears. The groom looked annoyed. Guests were fanning themselves with wrinkled programs. But that wasn't what made it viral. What made it viral was the caption someone wrote above it. When you disrespect the sibling who funded your fantasy, don't be surprised when the dream turns into a disaster. It had less than 200 followers. A wedding snark page. And yet it hit 45,000 likes in 3 hours. Because people started adding context. People who knew. Isn't this the wedding where the sister paid for everything and then ghosted? My cousin knows the venue planner. The bride screamed at her. This is why you don't burn bridges with the person holding the receipt folder. By the end of the day, Tasha and Jordan's wedding became a trending search term. But I got tagged. And soon enough, my inbox filled with quiet claps from people who knew what I'd endured in silence. Then came the email from the wedding magazine. Yes, the one that had initially agreed to feature Tasha's journey to the altar after I helped her write the pitch. Hi, Madison. We've become aware of some discrepancies in the vendor story submitted by your sister. We'd love to speak with you if you're open to clarifying the actual sequence of events. I declined. Not out of pettiness. Out of peace. Because this wasn't about exposing her. It was about removing myself from their illusion entirely. The next blow came at Sunday brunch. Not mine, theirs. A waiter I knew from college messaged me. You're not gonna believe this. Your family's at Echo Bistro. Full table. All dressed up like nothing happened. Until this old couple approached and said, we saw your daughter's wedding online, such a shame. Beautiful dress, though. Bro, the table froze. I almost dropped the mimosa. I laughed so hard I dropped my phone. Karma, as it turns out, has no dress code. That night, my sister finally messaged me. Not a voice note. Not a call. Just a single line. I hope you're proud of yourself. I typed out 10 different responses. Deleted all of them. Then sent. I didn't break your wedding, Tasha. I just stopped holding it up. She never replied. The final straw? My mother called me 3 days later. Calm. Collected. Almost soft. I know we've made mistakes. But don't you think this went too far? I stayed quiet. Then she added, we're still family, Madison. And I finally answered, you're right, Mom. We something you earn. Click. No shouting. No slam. Just a click. And I sat back in my chair, letting silence wrap around me like armor. They'd used my name, my labor, my money, but they never once saw my worth. Now, the world did. And nothing terrifies a family of image-obsessed manipulators more than a woman they can no longer control or erase. 2 weeks passed with no contact. No come home. No apologies. Just silence, bitter, cold, loaded with unspoken blame. Until one afternoon, I got a letter from an attorney. A thick envelope. Certified. Inside was a formal request to attend a family estate meeting. Apparently, my grandmother's property was finally being transferred, and my parents were, including all adult children. I nearly laughed. This was the same grandmother they said I was too busy to visit. The same estate they said would go to those who really understood family. I should have tossed the letter in the trash. But I didn't. Something told me this wasn't just about land or money. This was about power. And they were hoping I wouldn't show. So, of course, I did. I walked into the lawyer's office 10 minutes early, wearing the same navy suit my mom once called too masculine. The receptionist gave me a quiet nod. My siblings were already inside, Tasha in designer heels, arms folded. "Look who decided to show up," she muttered. I said nothing. The attorney began. Grandma Oswald had left the estate to be divided evenly between her grandchildren. Period. But there was a catch. Only those who had contributed care or financial support to her final years could claim the inheritance. Suddenly, the room tensed. Tasha's eyes widened. My brother leaned forward. "Wait, what does that mean exactly?" The lawyer turned a page. "It means only one grandchild sent financial support for hospice, covered 3 months of medication, and wrote consistent letters to the care home." He looked at me. "That would be Madison." Dead silence. Then Tasha practically screamed. "She did that behind our backs." The lawyer raised a brow. "She did it without asking for credit." My heart raced. But I didn't gloat. I just opened my folder and handed over the original receipts. Dated, signed, irrefutable. That's the thing about being treated like the shadow in your own family. You learn to keep everything. Because someday, you might have to illuminate the truth. Outside the office, my brother tried to corner me. "Madison, come on. You don't really need Grandma's house. You're doing well." I smiled politely. "Exactly. I don't need it. That's why I'm turning it into a women's shelter." He blinked. "Wait, what?" "You all said I was useless. An embarrassment. Not family enough. So I'm giving this house to women who don't have one." And I walked away. That night, I posted just one photo online. No captions. No text. Just the key to Grandma's house resting in my palm. The one, Madison. Breaking generational curses one move at a time. That key looks better in your hand than on their Pinterest board. I never wanted revenge. But justice? Justice has a quiet elegance. It doesn't scream. It simply walks in, calm, unshaken, and rewrites the ending. And that's exactly what I plan to do. The shelter launched 6 weeks later. Quietly. Intentionally. No press, no announcement, no dramatic ribbon cutting. Just a clean kitchen. Fresh linens. And keys handed to women who needed a second chance more than I ever needed their approval. I named it the Olive Branch. Not for peace, but for what it takes to grow something after being burned, patience, nourishment, and roots that refuse to die. Of course, my family found out. They always do. Not from me, but from a journalist who had once covered Tasha's failed wedding. Apparently, they were doing a feature on quietly powerful women. And someone submitted my name. The article's headline read, "The Black Sheep Who Bought a House, Gave It Away, and Walked into Her Power." Tasha reposted it with an eye roll emoji. My mom called me twice, no voicemail. Then came the text from my dad. "You've made your point." No apology. No reflection. Just that. A month later, I hosted a small housewarming for the shelter. Just staff, the women, and a few neighbors who donated stories. We cried. One of the women, a nurse who left an abusive marriage, hugged me and said, "This is the first time I've slept without fear in 4 years." That's when it hit me. I'd spent years funding holidays, houses, cars, trying to buy the warmth I never got from my own family. But here, I didn't have to earn love with money. I didn't have to fight to be seen. Here, I was just enough. 3 weeks later, my mom showed up, uninvited, unannounced. I was in the kitchen folding towels when one of the women said, "There's a woman at the door. Older. Looks kind of like you." I stepped outside. There she stood, Tasha behind her. Both dressed like they were attending a brunch they didn't want to be seen at. "We were just in the area," my mom said. "Thought we'd drop something off." She handed me a gift bag. Inside was a used candle and a dollar store photo frame. Empty. It wasn't a gift. It was a test. Would I bend? Would I cave? Would I let them back in? No questions asked? I handed it back. "This place is for healing, not performance." Tasha scoffed. "You're still bitter, huh?" I stepped closer. "No. I'm clear. And clarity isn't bitterness. It's just finally seeing people as they are. They left, but not before my mom muttered, "Don't expect us to come back when the cameras do." I smiled. "Don't worry. I never expected you to come when I was bleeding either." That night, one of the girls in the shelter drew a sketch. It was a tree cracked down the middle with a woman standing beneath it, alone but smiling. Roots tangled around her ankles like armor. She handed it to me and said, "I drew you strong because you remind me what survival looks like." I framed it, the first photo I ever put up in that house. It was 3 months of silence after that. No calls, no surprise drop-ins, no dramatic guilt texts about how families should stick together. Honestly, I thought they'd given up until the fundraiser gala. It was a formal event held by a local nonprofit that partnered with shelters like mine, black tie, high-end donors, and a guest list curated to perfection. I was invited as a speaker, and for the first time in years, I said yes to standing on a stage. I wore a dark green velvet gown, minimal makeup, just confidence, the kind that wasn't bought or borrowed, but built from ashes. I stood in front of a full room and told them what it meant to grow up invisible in a family that only saw you when they needed something. How I gave and gave and gave until the only thing I had left was my silence. And how that silence became my superpower. By the time I finished, the room was still. No claps, no movement, just a hum, the sound of people feeling. Then applause erupted. Standing ovation. Cameras. Tears. And that's when I saw them. My parents. Standing near the bar. Not clapping. Not smiling. Just watching. As if they'd wandered into a movie they didn't understand. Afterward, they approached. My mom hugged me first, like nothing had happened. "You looked beautiful up there." My dad nodded. "We're proud. Truly." I let the silence hang. Then my mom pulled out an envelope. Just a small gift. From the family. "Maybe we can all reset." I opened it. It was a check. $10,000. Made out to the Olive Branch Foundation. Signed in her old, careful handwriting. I looked up at her. She was smiling like she'd just handed me forgiveness in paper form. And I handed it right back. We don't accept donations from people who only give to be seen. The next day, Tasha called. "Seriously, Maddie? They're trying. You don't have to humiliate them." I took a breath. Do you know what trying looks like? It looks like showing up to your sister's art show, even if it's in a church basement. It looks like checking in when you know she's hurting. It looks like not using her money, name, or effort and then cutting her out of every family photo. Tasha was quiet, so I kept going. What they did wasn't forgetfulness. It was intentional erasure. And the worst part, I let them do it. For years. Until now. Click. That weekend, I held a garden brunch at the shelter. We set up long tables, fresh flowers, open mics. Dozens of women came. Survivors, donors, friends. Some in sundresses, some in hoodies, some still learning how to smile again. And me? I stood in the middle of it all, full. Not just of food or praise or peace, but of clarity. And it hit me. I'd spent so long begging to be part of a family that wouldn't even spell my name right on a Christmas card, when all along, I was meant to build one of my own. From scratch. From soul. From truth. And this time, nobody would have the power to erase me. 6 months later, I got a letter. Not a call. Not an email. A handwritten letter. From my father. "Dear Madison," I read the article in Impact Monthly. "I had no idea the shelter had helped so many people. Your mother and Ike, we were wrong. About everything. We should have celebrated you. We should have protected you. If you ever want to talk, we're here." It didn't feel like a trap. It didn't feel like manipulation. It felt like a man trying to make peace with the ghost of a daughter he pushed into silence. But I didn't rush to respond. Instead, I slipped the letter into a folder titled, "What Healing Looks Like." A quiet file I kept, full of receipts, letters, sketches from shelter kids, and photos that had my name spelled correctly. Because even now, healing wasn't loud. It was layered, uneven, ongoing. Then came the city recognition. The Olive Branch was named one of the top 10 grassroots initiatives transforming lives. We were invited to a televised city council ceremony. I stood backstage, watching the montage play, women hugging their kids, building resumes, learning to cook again, and I realized they had no idea what my family looked like. No one in that room knew the decades of being overlooked, mocked, sacrificed. To them, I was just Madison James, the founder, the changemaker, not the helper, not the embarrassment, not the family maid. Just me. After the ceremony, a young woman came up to me with her daughter. The little girl was holding a drawing, crayons scribbled across the page. It was me, wearing a crown made of books and flowers, standing in front of a house with open doors and golden light pouring out. She said you're what she wants to be when she grows up, the mom smiled. I crouched down and asked the girl, why me? She shrugged. Because you made a home for people who didn't have one. I fought the tears, but one slipped anyway. You just made my whole year. The next morning, I walked through the garden behind the shelter, barefoot. The grass was cold and the air was soft. One of those rare mornings where nothing hurts, even if everything used to. I thought about my mother's voice saying, "You've always been the family joke." And for the first time, I didn't feel the sting of it, because I'd built something from every punchline. I'd turned their mockery into bricks and their silence into blueprints. And standing there in the sun, I whispered to no one in particular, I was never the joke. I was the blueprint. I've been erased, silenced, minimized, and used. But I never broke. Instead, I built a name, a house, a purpose. And now, every time someone walks through the shelter's doors, every time a woman looks in the mirror and sees herself again, I remember what my father once said at that fundraiser. Madison James, you built all this. And I finally said it aloud, proud and whole. Yes, I did. I wasn't asking to be part of their family anymore, because I became the family I always needed. And I opened the door, not to let them in, but to let everyone else find the kind of love